We're moving on to education and training now. Student debt, as Tony alluded to in his introduction, is a burden that will stick with many of our young people for decades into their careers. What needs to change to make tertiary education and vocational training more fairly available to all? And how do we ensure that the skill set of New Zealand's workforce remains relevant in a rapidly changing world?
If you have a look at our policy, you will find that we've gone back to the first year obviously is free, which is well done for getting our students through, but the second and third up to fifth year, especially if you're going to be a doctor, costs money. So our policy says if you stay in the country after you've qualified, it's a dollar for dollar payback. So if you spend 5 years where you had to get a student loan, you stay 5 years in the country instead of going overseas, which you can't now anyway, you will get your student loan is gone. It's really straightforward. It's very simple. I come from the era where teachers didn't have to pay to become a teacher. These are all the little issues we have. Our military is there's not enough in our military, yet we've got young people that would love to go into it, but can't get into it. There's not enough available. There's so many areas. Nursing, mental health week by the way, is very, very important, and we need to support all of that. We're doing it anyway by paying them to stay home with a payment they get every week just to live. Let's put it into our young people so that they can grow and pay them back for what they're going to do to save our country.
Kia ora. So I'm the education spokesperson for the Opportunities Party, and tertiary education in this nation needs a complete, what we're calling a reimagination. I think that's a nicer word than review, but we expect the sector to reimagine themselves with us. We want to acknowledge that life is going to change for these youth. They won't be in one job forever. They're going to have to retrain throughout their lives. We want to encourage lifelong learning and a love of that. And so a few things we would do is move the student debt onto the university's books. That will incentivise them to provide courses that are actually useful for the students. We want them to offer more short-term intensive courses, so you're not just doing sort of a transition of life study, but more lifelong learning, short-term intensive courses throughout your life. And we want to encourage them to collaborate with each other. So universities with polytechs and with the communities and with the NGOs and everybody, so that there's more of a sort of a holistic picture. Less competition, more collaboration is what TOP is all about. Kia ora.
Look, as a former school teacher, particularly passionate about education and understand the important role that it plays in our society. As a government, a previous government, back in 2005, we took interest off student loans. I've had 2 student loans over my time, 6,000 and 30,000. So I'm certainly very, very familiar with that. The reality is, as over the past few years, we made the first year free. But what the key thing we've done recently in terms of tertiary study, the key thing we've done recently is to incentivise people into trades and apprenticeships. And so it is now free to study a trade or an apprenticeship. And look, that's going to help with the economic recovery from COVID as well. We're going to see people who, unfortunately, when they become unemployed, which is likely as a projection from Treasury, there's an opportunity for them to move into trades. I'm talking about men and women moving into trades areas, and that will give them a great opportunity. They can start their own business in a trade, and certainly look to raise their incomes for them and their family.
Kia ora. I completely agree with what was just said by Joni. But as a current tertiary student, I can wholeheartedly tell you that what is needed is more care for students and for staff and faculties, not only within tertiary educations like universities, but also within polytechnics and things like that. A flourishing tertiary education sector is innovative, it is forward thinking, it is built around this idea of creating a better future for our young people, for our youth, but also acknowledging that there are a lot of mature students at university now, and we need to support their needs as well. So the Greens have committed to a guaranteed minimum income, which is actually at a livable level. $325 a week would change my life. It would mean that I could pay rent and pay my bills. It would mean that I could bus to uni without worrying about whether I can afford lunch. And that is a kind of vision that we need to support our students.
All right, thanks everybody. That was a bit of a take from everyone on education and training. Question 3 is a really quick one. It's just a show of hands. Quick poll. Raise your hand if you think that the voting age should be lowered.
I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the leadership of our Prime Minister during this COVID time. We only have to have a look overseas to see how bad things can get. And so obviously, back in March, we went hard and early, as you said, and that enabled our economy to open up fairly quickly afterwards. We had that 3-month period, which for most businesses was reasonably good. Unfortunately, obviously COVID came back and we're still managing that. Just in terms of moving forward, I've certainly acknowledged the aspects around trades training. But there's certainly, this is an opportunity, as I said before, to diversify our economy. We are fortunate in terms of being a food producing nation. The world will always need food, and trade is continuing to take place. We continue to work on free trade agreements, with the UK and the EU. But certainly diversifying into, like I said, areas like tech is something that we need to do. And in terms of construction, will play a key role. There's around half a dozen large construction projects, 50 to 100 million, about to kick off in the city, which will be good for our region.
Kia ora. Yeah, I agree. As a partner in this government, the Greens have worked really hard to support moves made such as the wage subsidy that has really supported our country and its people. We believe that a good economy is one that actually cares for people and actually supports people, our most vulnerable, but people at a middle income as well. And we strongly believe that the best COVID recovery is one that is going to look after people. We've seen it in these lockdown times, how much we rely on each other, and putting profit before well-being has gotten us to a point where our hospitals are overflowing and people are going without enough kai, and it's simply not good enough. So we're proposing a stimulus for, as is proven, the lowest earners in our country who will directly go and spend that money in their local communities. It's a proven fact that they are the best stimulus for our economy, and we're proposing more support for them and to directly put money into their pockets so that they can have a contribution as well without suffering. Kia ora.
My turn as an accountant doing the business side of it. I agree a bit with Greens about how trying to lift up the bottom, but our idea is to deliver a tax cut for all workers in New Zealand. National want it just for the top, Greens are just push the bottom up. Our universal basic income is already given to beneficiaries, so it's no different. We want everyone who gets that already to be able to work and not have to pay it back. Our current system that Labor have looked at, and they're only moving from 5 to 8 hours, means if you work after 5 hours, you're essentially taxed at 85%. How's that going to encourage people back to work? We need this money back to our people, and this will be all paid for by cutting our bureaucracy, transforming WINZ from being an enforcement agency to providing the key social services we expected, and getting more money to be out there to be spent in our small businesses. That helps everyone. We also want to encourage our R&D spend to be used on commercialising. We fund these things, but we don't let them sell them to the world. This is why Xero and that go overseas for their funding.
Yes, our economy moving forward was the question. I don't see that by giving free handouts for people to do nothing. And yes, if you get free money, where is the incentive to earn a little bit more? So I agree with you, even though your policy is money for nothing. Hey, the best thing for our economy is, well, there's so many of our policies will help the economy moving forward. One is we have a tax policy. So your first $20,000 that you earn is tax-free, and that will help people that are over 65 because their pension is taxed. It'll help low income and students For every dollar up to the first 20,000 is tax free. So for most people, that's several thousand in their pocket that they will spend, because they can spend, my belief and our party's belief, you can spend your money much wiser than the government. And you will spend it locally in your community, and it will stimulate the economy. Just because...
Yeah, so the Provincial Growth Fund, I've got to say it again. We have to invest in our country and in ourselves. It's as simple as that. We need to get our young people out there working. We need to carry on building things. We need to spend the money internally. The other thing we need to do in the accountant side of it is all of these overseas owned banks that we all bank money in, that send all their millions of dollars back overseas, can get back on the boat and go home. We can easily look after ourselves, as been stated. We have to invest initially in our provinces for us to get out of where we are over the next 5 years. Never mind any of these special treatments for everybody, because if you've got no money, you can't give anybody anything. So we do have to grow, and we have to invest, and the only people to invest in are our workers and our students, because tomorrow or next year, our students are what's going to be keeping me, at 64 years of age, alive.
Okay, quick.
I think it's a kick in the guts to people who need extra social support to further push them below the poverty line. There are tens of thousands of New Zealanders, including 1 in 4 children in this country, who live in material hardship, who suffer on a daily basis, and to further push them into poverty by offering them income support that is well below the poverty line is a kick in the guts. As a current student, someone who's on a student allowance, someone who is disabled, it's embarrassing. So can I just say that was quite frustrating to hear.
Can I just really quickly add to that? In the 1990s, we had sort of a form of austerity, really, as unemployment was rising. And I think we're still dealing with the social issues from the 1990s. There's an opportunity here to not go into that austerity mindset. Yes, we are borrowing quite a bit of money, but our debt to GDP is still really strong compared to other countries.
Affordable housing is a key challenge facing Hamilton and the rest of New Zealand at the moment. Current housing costs are consuming too much of the household income for many New Zealanders. What are your party's policies that will help address this imbalance between income and housing cost that leaves so many New Zealanders in a cycle of poverty?
I'm a current renter. I recognise that I'm probably in the minority in this room, knowing the suburb that we're in. But it is a crisis that we're facing. My flatmates, my peers, my colleagues, my mates spend over 2/3 of their income on rent. They don't have enough money to live off. They don't have enough money to pay their bills, and it is a disgrace that we've let it get this bad. So the Greens, we understand that having a warm, safe, dry home is actually a human right, and we're really proud in this government to have built over 5,000 new public homes when the last government, the national government, sold off 6,000. There was a social deficit left by the last government, and we're so proud to be working towards minimising that deficit, but also working on solutions. And one of those is our progressive home ownership plan, which is essentially renting to own. And that's something I would be really keen on. My rent is going into someone's mortgage, and I have no security at the end of the year. I could be homeless for all I know, and I don't think that's fair. And the Greens know that it's a human right, and we will fight for it as we have for decades.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, look, having been a tenant, landlord and homeowner, I feel like I understand all aspects, all sides of it. Housing certainly is a huge issue. It's probably the number one issue in terms of Hamilton in particular, high growth areas. I've been working hard over the past 3 years to get some key developments going. So working with the team up at Te Awa Lakes, 1,500 houses there, and they're getting very close to getting that across the line. Working with TGH around a whole lot of houses out at their port area, the Ruakura. As the government, we gave a 200 million interest-free loan and 130 million in subsidies to unlock Peacocks, which is 10,000 houses. We're working with people building apartments in the CBD. We've got 3,500 people in the CBD. We've got 10,000 people living in apartments in the CBD. So there are some things on the pipeline, working with Crown Infrastructure Partners at the Rotokauri for a few thousand houses up there. So there's certainly things on the pipeline, trying to progress them as quickly as possible, because there's an absolutely huge housing shortage here, without any doubt.
Thank you. Luckily, I was in council for one term, and I heard all the stories. And yes, and we say we're building all these houses. These are all very, very expensive houses that are getting built. I can tell you that. I totally understand. I know, sort of, yeah, whatever. Affordable housing is now over $500,000. Who can afford a house for $500,000? Our policy is still in the making, but what we've, hey, we're young. You're lucky you've been around for a long time. So, that's right, you love. That's okay, that's cool. Look, when you're a new party, you have to run really, really fast. But what we've realized is that in Auckland, I don't know, has ever anybody door knocked? I knocked on 6,000 doors. How many empty houses have we got in Hamilton? Auckland apparently has up to 30,000 empty houses owned by overseas investors, but mainly Chinese. What are we doing with these empty houses? Why can't we get them back again? Why do we let overseas people buy up our property and raise the cost for us? How dare they? You know, come on.
Can we not have racism at this event, please?
Yeah, that would be relevant.
Good evening. First thing we need to do is just concentrate on the future, and the future is we need to train our kids, we need to get our people into buildings, teach them how to build houses and do the job. In relation to the housing, a lot of the issues delaying things are your council. In particular in Auckland, you can wait 12 months just to get a permit, and then they'll charge you 10 grand. So, you know, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to go on in the hierarchy first that we're trying to sort out now, so we can change all of this stuff. You couldn't even build a little shed at the back of the house without a permit. You can do that now in Auckland because they know it's a waste of time because people started doing it. So just those sort of things that we need to work through to get our housing done. It's as simple as that. We've got the timber, we've got the people, nearly enough to complete. In Manurewa at the moment, they're stacking 6 houses in one section. So it's a massive thing, but at least it's housing people. The average people living in a house in Manurewa is 8. So, you know, as I said, if we don't start this provincial growth, we're going to still be talking about this in another 6 years. Thank you.
Can you please tell me in 1 minute or less the number one reason why a vote for your party will be beneficial for the social, environmental and economic well-being of future generations of New Zealanders? We'll just start here and go along.
Yeah, it's simply straightforward. We've already said it. I'm harping on about it, but the Provincial Growth Fund is the future of this country to get us back. Investing in our students, investing in our mid-range people so that they can carry on throughout the year. Us as older people, and I'm 62 now, so I'm allowed to say this, I look after my kids instead of the government. I shouldn't have to, but I do. I still work 45 hours a week. I shouldn't have to, but I do. In our party, we want everybody to survive, everybody to go forward. We have the policies to do that, and we've done well in the coalition, and that's the future. No single management party. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to touch on transport briefly. So as a government, we've taken a multimodal approach to transport by building roads, rail, cycling, walking, public transport, those sort of key areas. And we've got a passenger rail service starting between Hamilton and Auckland early next year. And we've got a business case for rapid rail between the CBDs, basically 1 hour between the CBDs. And so basically what we're doing is looking to unite those labour markets, really, which will provide a huge impetus for businesses around here in terms of the movement of people and the movement of money within that region. That Hamilton to Auckland corridor it's the key growth area in New Zealand, and we've been working really hard on that area to basically help future-proof the growth in Hamilton and the Waikato region. So basically, in terms of that transport, we want to continue what we're doing there around taking that multimodal approach in terms of unlocking opportunities both for businesses and individuals.
The green vision is a vision that is fit for all of us. It's a vision where protecting our planet and protecting our people go hand in hand. It's about ensuring that the deficits that were left by decades of previous governments that put profit before well-being are minimised, that the harm that is being seen today is minimised, and we will do that through creating new systems and improving on the systems that we have, such as superannuation, that are actually working really well, but improve on the areas in our society where people aren't getting the support that they need, because everyone deserves the support that they need. I'm running because I thought, as a first-time voter, that my choices were pretty abysmal for Hamilton East. I didn't see someone who shared my values, and the Greens share my values, and that is one of looking after the most vulnerable in our community, of assuming that responsibility as the privileged few. We need to do this because it's our responsibility, and the Greens understand that it's the only way. We have to think ahead and we have to act now. Party Vote Green.
Kia ora. Some big money is being promised to being spent in the next few years, and so this is a really key election for everybody. Infrastructure is so important, and we need to get rid of doing these little pet projects that all around the country politicians are selling to their local electorate to buy their votes. I agree with Jamie that the Auckland to Hamilton corridor is important for our future, but every single project, infrastructure project, should be run through transparent business cases that consider society, environment and the economy. And New Zealand First, if you've got policies, we'd love to see them because they're certainly not on your website. So TOP is the party that is socially and environmentally responsible and fiscally sound. And so we're sitting in the middle to make sure that the future decisions are the best ones for all of us. Kia ora.